The U.S. West Coast faces a terrifying prospect. It is a danger that commands our immediate attention. Researchers delivered stark news just yesterday, May 24, 2025. A new study published in the esteemed Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences outlines this grave risk. Scientists from Virginia Tech have modeled a future catastrophe. They warn of a potential mega-tsunami. This wave could reach an astonishing 1,000 feet in height. Such an event would bring unimaginable devastation to our shores. The quiet coastline we know could be violently, irrevocably changed. We must listen to these warnings. The primary cause for this alarming prediction is a well-known geological feature. The Cascadia Subduction Zone lies beneath the Pacific Ocean. This immense fault line is capable of generating a massive earthquake. An earthquake of magnitude 8.0 or greater is the specific concern. Such a seismic event would displace a colossal volume of water. This displacement is the birth of a tsunami. But this would be no ordinary tsunami. It would be a mega-tsunami, a true giant. The scale of this threat is difficult to comprehend fully. Yet, comprehend it we must. The potential consequences are dire for millions. Coastal communities from Northern California to Washington state are in the path of this potential disaster. The sheer force of a 1,000-foot wave is almost beyond imagination. It would obliterate buildings and reshape the very land itself. Infrastructure would crumble. Lives would be tragically lost. The study emphasizes that rising sea levels further worsen this flood risk. This is not a single threat, but a compound one. Our understanding of coastal safety must evolve rapidly with this new information. This is not a scene from a disaster movie. It is a scientific projection based on rigorous modeling. The Virginia Tech researchers generated tens of thousands of earthquake scenarios. Their findings paint a grim picture of potential destruction. The urgency cannot be overstated. We are dealing with a force of nature that demands respect and, crucially, preparation. The West Coast is a vibrant, dynamic region. It is also a region perched on the edge of immense geological power. Ignoring this power is a luxury we no longer possess. The time to act is now. The Cascadia Subduction Zone, or CSZ, is the engine driving this threat. It is a massive geological fault. The fault stretches for approximately 700 miles. It runs from northern Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada, down to Cape Mendocino in Northern California. This is a vast underwater boundary. Here, two of Earth's tectonic plates meet. The Juan de Fuca plate is slowly diving or subducting beneath the North American plate. This process is relentless. It has been happening for millions of years, shaping our continent. This subduction process is not smooth. The plates stick. For centuries, immense stress builds up along the fault line. Think of it as bending a giant spring, further and further. Eventually, the accumulated stress will overcome the friction. The plates will suddenly slip. This sudden release of energy is what generates an earthquake. In the case of the CSZ, the potential energy stored is enormous. It is capable of producing a mega-thrust earthquake. These are the most powerful earthquakes on the planet. They can exceed magnitude 9.0. The historical record tells a chilling story. The Cascadia Subduction Zone has not experienced a major rupture since January 26, 1700. We know this specific date from records in Japan. A powerful tsunami, an orphan tsunami with no locally felt earthquake, struck the Japanese coast. Scientists traced its origin back to Cascadia. This means over 325 years have passed. Stress has been accumulating for more than 3 centuries. Geologically speaking, this makes another major event statistically overdue. The monster is sleeping, but it is restless. The silence of the Cascadia Subduction Zone is deceptive. It is not a sign of safety. Instead, it signifies a growing danger. Each passing year adds more strain to the locked section of the fault. Scientists use GPS measurements and geological studies to monitor this strain. The evidence points to a fault that is primed for a significant rupture. When this rupture occurs, the consequences will be felt across the entire Pacific Northwest. The ground will shake violently, the seafloor will heave, and the water above will surge. It is crucial to understand that a mega-tsunami is vastly different from an ordinary tsunami. Most people are familiar with tsunamis generated by earthquakes in distant locations. These waves might be a few feet or perhaps tens of feet high when they reach shore. They can cause significant damage, certainly. However, a mega-tsunami operates on an entirely different scale of magnitude and terror. We are talking about a wall of water that could potentially reach 1,000 feet. This is taller than many skyscrapers, a truly terrifying prospect for coastal inhabitants. The sheer height and volume of a mega-tsunami give it unimaginable destructive power. An ordinary tsunami is a series of fast-moving waves. A mega-tsunami is more like a catastrophic flood of biblical proportions. It carries immense energy. It can surge miles inland, sweeping away everything in its path. Trees, buildings, roads, and bridges would offer little resistance. The force is not just in the water's height, but also its incredible speed and the debris it carries. This debris acts like a battering ram, multiplying the destruction. The mechanisms that generate mega-tsunamis can vary. The Cascadia event would be caused by a massive earthquake and the resultant seafloor displacement. However, mega-tsunamis can also be triggered by colossal landslides, either underwater or from coastal mountains collapsing into the sea. The 1958 Lituya Bay event in Alaska, for instance, was caused by a landslide following an earthquake. That wave reached a staggering 1,719 feet in a localized fjord. While the Cascadia scenario focuses on tectonic movement, the potential for such extreme wave heights is a documented reality. Therefore, when scientists warn of a 1,000-foot mega-tsunami, it is not hyperbole. It is a reflection of the immense geological forces at play. The Cascadia Subduction Zone has the potential to displace a truly vast amount of ocean water. This displacement, occurring suddenly and violently, is what could create such a monstrous wave. The difference is not just quantitative in terms of height. It is qualitative in terms of the scope of devastation and the nature of the hazard itself. It requires a completely different level of respect and planning. Scientists have estimated the probability of a major earthquake along the Cascadia Subduction Zone. The numbers are concerning. There is an estimated 15% chance of a magnitude 8.0 or greater earthquake occurring in this zone within the next 50 years. Some studies suggest the odds for a magnitude 9.0 event are roughly 10 to 14% in the same time frame. While these percentages might not sound overwhelmingly high to some in geological terms, and for events of this magnitude, they are significant, this is not a remote possibility. It is a very real threat within our lifetimes. A magnitude 8.0 earthquake releases an incredible amount of energy. A magnitude 9.0 event, which the CSZ is fully capable of, releases about 32 times more energy than a magnitude 8.0. The ground shaking from such an event would be violent and prolonged. It could last for several minutes. This shaking alone would cause widespread damage to buildings, bridges, and other infrastructure across the Pacific Northwest. It would trigger landslides and liquefaction. The earthquake itself would be a major disaster, even before the arrival of the subsequent tsunami. Researchers arrive at these probabilities through careful study. They use paleoseismology, the study of ancient earthquakes. Scientists examine sediment layers, ghost forests, and other geological evidence. This evidence reveals a history of repeated large earthquakes along the CSZ. The average recurrence interval for these major events is estimated to be between 200 and 550 years. The last one was in 1700. We are clearly within the window for another. Modern computer modeling, like that used in the recent Virginia Tech study, further refines these estimates and potential impacts. This probability is not a vague forecast for the distant future. A 15% chance in 50 years means that communities need to take this threat seriously now. Planning and preparedness cannot be deferred. For individuals, it means understanding the risk to their specific location. For governments, it means investing in resilient infrastructure and robust emergency plans. The odds are too high to ignore. The potential consequences are too devastating to leave to chance. The Earth beneath the Pacific Northwest is storing energy, and one day, it will release it. Section 5, Ground Zero, Identifying the Most Vulnerable Coastal Regions. The recent study by Virginia Tech researchers pinpoints the areas at highest risk. The most severe impacts from a Cascadia mega-tsunami are predicted for Northern California. The state of Oregon, particularly its northern coast, is also highly vulnerable. Similarly, southern Washington faces a significant threat. These regions lie directly in the path of the tsunami generated by a Cascadia earthquake. Their proximity to the fault line means that the warning time before the tsunami hits will be terrifyingly short. We are talking about mere minutes in some locations. Major cities like Seattle, Washington, and Portland, Oregon, are particularly vulnerable. While Seattle is somewhat sheltered by Puget Sound, parts of it are still at risk from a large tsunami. Portland, situated on the Columbia River, could see tsunami waters surge far inland. Many smaller coastal towns and communities along the Pacific Northwest coastline would bear the brunt of the initial impact. These communities often have economies reliant on the ocean. Their infrastructure is concentrated near the shore. They are the true ground zero for this potential disaster. A critical factor exacerbating the danger is land subsidence. The same earthquake that generates the tsunami could cause coastal land to sink dramatically. The study estimates this subsidence could be up to 6.5 feet. Imagine the coastline suddenly dropping by more than 6 feet. This instantly lowers coastal elevations. It allows tsunami waters to penetrate much farther inland than they otherwise would. This sinking effect has a profound impact on flood risk assessments. It means that areas previously considered safe might no longer be. This subsidence dramatically expands the post-earthquake floodplain. Current flood risk areas, which cover about 35 square miles, could increase to 116 square miles. This is a threefold increase in the inundated zone. The study estimates that if such an earthquake occurred today, an additional 14,350 residents would find themselves within this newly expanded floodplain. Furthermore, 22,500 additional structures and 777 miles of roadway would be compromised. The sinking land effectively redraws the map of vulnerability in an instant. Section 6. A wall of water. Envisioning the impact of a 1,000-foot wave. The prospect of a 1,000-foot wave is difficult to truly grasp. To put this into perspective, the Statue of Liberty is 305 feet tall. The Space Needle in Seattle is 605 feet tall. A 1,000-foot wave would dwarf these iconic structures. It would be a towering mass of water, moving with incredible speed and force. Such a wave would not merely flood coastal areas. It would obliterate them. It would scour the land clean, leaving behind a landscape of utter devastation. The sheer destructive power is almost unimaginable. The effects on land and infrastructure would be catastrophic. Buildings, even those made of reinforced concrete, would be crushed or swept away. Bridges would be torn from their moorings. Roads would be obliterated. Ports and harbors would cease to exist. Power lines, communication networks, and pipelines would be destroyed. The tsunami would carry vast amounts of debris. Remnants of buildings, vehicles, trees, turning the water into a churning, destructive grinder. This debris would cause further damage as it is carried inland by the surging water. An earthquake along the Cascadia Subduction Zone generates a tsunami through a sudden, violent movement of the seafloor. As the tectonic plates slip, vast sections of the ocean floor can be thrust upwards or drop downwards by many feet. This vertical displacement acts like a giant paddle, shoving the entire column of water above it. This creates a series of powerful waves that radiate outwards from the earthquake's epicenter. For the U.S. West Coast, the epicenter would be dangerously close, giving little time for the waves to lose energy before impact. The increased flood risk area is a stark statistic. An expansion from 35 square miles to 116 square miles due to land subsidence and the tsunami itself is a massive change. This means homes, businesses, schools, and hospitals previously thought safe would be inundated. The study's projection of an additional 14,350 residents, 22,500 structures, and 777 miles of roadway falling within the post-earthquake floodplain highlights the scale of the human and economic impact. This is not just flooding, it is complete erasure of coastal communities. Recovery would take decades, if it were possible at all in some areas. Section 7. Echoes from the past. Historical accounts of devastating mega-tsunamis. While a 1,000-foot tsunami on the U.S. West Coast sounds like a modern nightmare, history provides us with sobering precedents. The Cascadia Subduction Zone itself has a known history of such cataclysms. The last major event, in January 1700, generated a massive earthquake and a powerful tsunami. While written records are scarce from the North American coast at that time, Native American oral traditions vividly describe the ground shaking and the ocean flooding the land. More concretely, the tsunami traveled across the Pacific, causing damage and deaths in Japan, where detailed records were kept. More recently, and perhaps more visually startling, was the 1958 Lituya Bay mega-tsunami in Alaska. A magnitude 7.8 earthquake triggered a massive landslide into the narrow fjord. This sudden displacement of water created a wave that ran up the opposite slope to an astonishing height of 1,719 feet. Trees were stripped from the mountainside up to this incredible elevation. While Lituya Bay was a localized event in a confined body of water, it unequivocally demonstrates that mega-tsunamis with wave heights exceeding 1,000 feet are terrifyingly real. Nature is capable of such extremes. Looking further back into Earth's history, scientists have found evidence of even more ancient mega-tsunamis. For example, around 105,000 years ago, the island of Lanai in Hawaii experienced a wave estimated to be around 1,000 feet tall. This colossal wave is believed to have been caused by the collapse of volcanic slopes from a neighboring island. These events, though separated by vast timescales and different trigger mechanisms, underscore a crucial point. The geological forces that shape our planet can, and do, produce waves of almost unimaginable scale and destructive capability. These historical and prehistoric examples serve as vital warnings. They tell us that the models predicting a Cascadia mega-tsunami are not far-fetched fantasies. They are grounded in the known behavior of our planet. The Cascadia region is geologically active and has produced such events before. Other regions have experienced similar or even larger wave events. Ignoring these echoes from the past would be a grave mistake. They provide context and urgency to the scientific warnings of today. We must learn from history to prepare for the future. Section 8. The urgent call: updating maps and bolstering community defenses. The recent Virginia Tech study, published on May 24, 2025, sounds a clear alarm. Our current understanding of tsunami risk is insufficient. Researchers strongly urge the development and adoption of updated tsunami inundation maps. Crucially, these new maps must account for factors that previous models often overlooked. These factors include the compounding effects of climate-driven sea level rise. They also include the amplification effect on future tsunamis caused by changes in coastal morphology and the potential for land subsidence during a major earthquake. Outdated maps offer a false sense of security. The scientific rigor behind this call is substantial. The Virginia Tech team generated tens of thousands of earthquake models. These sophisticated simulations were created for both present-day conditions and for conditions 75 years into the future, specifically the year 2100. This forward-looking approach allows planners to anticipate how ongoing environmental changes, like rising seas, will exacerbate future tsunami impacts. The models demonstrate that the risk and potential impact could effectively double compared to previous estimates that did not fully incorporate these critical variables. This is a significant leap in our understanding. Beyond updated maps, there is an urgent need for comprehensive community preparedness. This is not just a task for government agencies. It requires the active participation of every individual living in at-risk areas. Communities must establish and clearly mark evacuation routes. Regular drills are essential to ensure residents know what to do and where to go when a warning is issued. Individuals and families should prepare emergency kits with food, water, first aid supplies, and communication devices. Public education campaigns are vital to raise awareness and foster a culture of preparedness. The ultimate goal is to build resilient communities capable of withstanding and recovering from such a catastrophic event. This involves protecting critical coastal ecosystems, which can provide natural buffers against wave energy. It also means making difficult decisions about land use and development in high-risk zones. Tina Dura, lead author of the study, emphasized that the expansion of the coastal floodplain following a Cascadia earthquake could significantly delay recovery timelines. Investing in preparedness now can minimize long-term damage and save countless lives when the inevitable occurs. Section 9. Racing against the tide. The critical need for preparedness and early warning. One of the most chilling aspects of a Cascadia-generated mega-tsunami is its rapid onset. Professor Tina Dura, lead author of the Virginia Tech study, highlighted this critical difference. Unlike some climate-driven events that unfold gradually over years or decades, an earthquake and the subsequent tsunami will strike with terrifying speed. There will be no time for leisurely adaptation or last-minute mitigation efforts once the ground starts to shake. The window of opportunity for action will be incredibly small, measured in minutes, not hours or days. Early alert systems are crucial, but their effectiveness in a near-field tsunami scenario like Cascadia is inherently limited. The earthquake itself will be the first and most immediate warning for those on the coast. Once the shaking stops, people in designated inundation zones must evacuate to higher ground immediately. Official tsunami warnings will follow, broadcast through sirens, emergency alerts on phones, and media channels. However, due to the proximity of the fault line, the first waves could arrive within 15 to 30 minutes of the earthquake. There is no time to waste. The destruction from such an event would be swift and overwhelmingly severe. The sheer power of a 1,000-foot wave, coupled with the effects of violent ground shaking and land subsidence, leaves little room for anything but immediate flight. Trying to ride out the event in inadequate shelter would be futile. The focus must be entirely on getting people out of harm's way before the water arrives. This underscores the absolute necessity of pre-event planning, clear evacuation routes, and a populace that understands the urgency and knows exactly what to do. Ultimately, preparedness is our most potent weapon against this looming threat. Because the event will unfold so rapidly, robust early warning systems, while essential, are only part of the solution. The true defense lies in educated communities, well-rehearsed evacuation plans, and a collective understanding of the profound risk. The findings of the May 2025 study are a stark reminder that the Cascadia Subduction Zone poses an ever-present danger. Heeding these warnings, updating our strategies, and fostering a culture of readiness are not just advisable. They are imperative for the survival of our West Coast communities.